International media coverage of Gaza has been focused this week on the Freedom Flotilla. The Madeleine ship carrying aid and activists to Gaza was intercepted by Israel on Monday. Its crew have been detained, with some already deported. But the flotilla's stated goal was spotlighting Gaza under siege. So today on MEELive Spotlight, we'll do that. Israel's renewed assault on Gaza has entered its 85th day, intensifying a 613-day military campaign that has killed at least 54,000 people in the enclave. The figure comes from Gaza's health ministry but is in line with UN reports, which revealed last month that over 300 members of their own humanitarian staff had been killed in the attacks. With Israel only allowing aid into Gaza in a trickle and via heavily militarized routes, over 76,000 children are registered as malnourished. That's with the Palestinian Medical Relief Society in Gaza. The real number is likely much higher than those registered. Meanwhile, concentrated aid hubs set up under a new Israeli-US plan have been branded human slaughterhouses by UN officials, and hundreds of starving Palestinians have been shot on sight. Another 17 Palestinians died today by Israeli gunfire at an aid distribution by the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, local health authorities report. And getting verified information from Gaza is difficult, with nearly 200 Palestinian journalists and media workers killed since the war started, some clearly targeted by an Israeli state that refuses to let international news teams into the territory. With the reality on the ground in Gaza intentionally being clouded, one attempt to draw focus is that of the Freedom Flotilla, whose Madeleine ship has wrapped public attention over the fates of its celebrity crew, which included Greta Thunberg. Francesca Albanese is the UN Special Reporter on the occupied Palestinian territories. Francesca, welcome to MEELive. Madeleine says...
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. The Madeleine crew said that the interception by Israel was a breach of international law, that they were unlawfully boarded by the military before being kidnapped in international waters. Israel says that their siege of Gaza is consistent with international law, that it's necessary to block weapons going to Hamas, and they say the Madeleine was the one breaking the law by attempting to breach their siege. What actually happened here? Who broke the law? And what needs to happen in response?
So first of all, let me say the context is one of a protracted illegality caused by Israel, by the 17-year blockade in Gaza, the 57 unlawful occupation in the entire occupied Palestinian territory, which includes the West Bank and East Jerusalem. So Israel is maintaining a control on this territory that is against the law and must be dismantled according to the International Court of Justice. So this is the first thing. The second thing is that Israel should, as is the de facto occupying power, should be the one providing and securing humanitarian aid to the population. I challenge the good faith expression Israel is providing humanitarian aid to the Gaza Foundation. No, Israel is starving the Palestinians through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. There is nothing humanitarian other than the name, and it's all about pretense and camouflage. But let's call things with their own name. The reason why so many people are calling Gaza an abattoir, a slaughterhouse, is because Palestinians are dying in dozens and dozens every day, hundreds and hundreds every week. And there is no possibility for the virtually defenseless population to protect themselves. In this context, the flotilla, being the Madeleine or other flotilla who attempted to break the siege before, are not against the law. All the more because of two reasons. The Madeleine in particular, which is what we are talking about, was carrying food, baby formula, and medicines. And by the way, symbolically, because this is a drop in the ocean of the extreme needs, the dire needs that the people in Gaza are in. However, they were seized, intercepted in international water while they were sailing with a UK flag, which means they were like UK territory in international waters. Only the UK had the power to stop for whatever reason, the flotilla. the Madeleine, and it didn't do that. So yes, it was unlawful to intercept and to seize the boat and its crew, and they were illegally taken to Israel. They were illegally asked to sign papers, and they are illegally detained in Israel, because the fact is that they have never wanted to go. And also, this is also, there is also another aspect of illegality among many. So there is the violation of the law of the sea. There is the violation of international humanitarian law, which obliged Israel not to hamper humanitarian aid. This is what Israel is breaching. But also, Israel has claimed to be threatened in waters that were not theirs. No one ever entered of these people Israeli waters. They were in Gaza. Again, Israel has no authority to intercept anything in Gaza waters.
Thank you. Francesca, you've had quite the 48 hours doing the media rounds on this incident. Mostly, you've spent it questioning the journalists who are supposed to be questioning you. We've picked out a couple of clips. Let's take a quick look.
All I can say for sure is that this stunt has done absolutely zero to help any of the people in Gaza. Zero.
This is your opinion, Piers, and I respect it very much, and it counts zero.
Okay. Well, in that case, we will agree to disagree. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. I appreciate it.
You don't want to talk with me about Gaza and the awful situation there and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. So you just wanted to talk about what you think it's a stunt.
Yeah.
You called me for that. So
Yes.
I'm international law expert, and you called me on your program to talk about Greta Thunberg.
Well, you've had nearly 20 minutes to talk about whatever you wanted to talk about.
I answered your question, Piers.
Yeah, you had 20 minutes. If you wanted to talk about something else, talk about something else.
However, I won't bother you further. Thank you very much. Till the next one. Bye-bye, Piers.
Israel rejects claims of genocide. It's being examined by the International Court of Justice, yet to make any ruling.
Why do you mention Israeli government refusing? Why don't you mention?
It will take years to examine, and it is extremely difficult to prove.
All Israeli scholars saying that is genocide. The president, the chief of the genocide studies today says genocide. Amnesty International, the UN Commission of Inquiry, the UN Special Committee on Israeli Practices. But you got Israel who refutes. Of course, Israel refutes. Does it matter?
And it is yet to be proven and could take years to be examined. If the purpose of this...
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. Excuse me. It doesn't need to be proven in order to trigger the obligation to prevent. There is an obligation to prevent.
Francesca, you have frustrations with the media coverage of Gaza. Consider me your journalist punchbag. Why are you so frustrated with the coverage that you're seeing?
Well, I have to say something, and I hope it doesn't sound like a mea culpa, because it's not. But I've been given hundreds and hundreds of interviews over 600 days, non-stop, seriously, every day. I've not had I have had 4 days of break in 600 days, during which I devoted time to my family without interacting with the media. And I'm generally quite gentle and cordial. But now these interviews, I gave these interviews, the one to the Australian media in the middle of the night. And I had been for 2 hours on the phone with these people. And I was frightened, and I heard people trying to stay calm, acting cool and mature, where they were frightened themselves. So one day I will use these videos that I asked people in my house to record, because it's history. Someone would die. You never know what happens when in this situation. But I was crying because I was scared for these people. So soon after, I have to confront someone who's sort of implicitly and with a very condescending but polite attitude, discrediting the facts. And this is something that I find frustrating after 600 days. And then poor Piers Morgan, he really got the worst of me. I have to say that he really made me lose my temper. This is how upset you can ever see me. But why? Because yesterday there was something else. It's not just about Palestine, the genocide, the denial of the genocide. It was the insult against one young person, a young lady who's really doing something that Pierce cannot even dream of doing, something out of self-interest, just out of justice and humanity, getting out of the comfort zone of his or her chair and being judged this way, like with this mimicking and this misogyny. Yeah, this hit a personal nerve in me. I don't even know why, but again, yeah, I think that this is where the frustration comes. Is the misogyny, is the patriarchy, is this alpha male attitude. I know it all, even if I don't know anything about that, and I overtalk about that. Yeah, I don't know. I get a bit frustrated about that.
And as you pointed out, Piers Morgan brought you an international law expert on his show, apparently just to talk about his personal opinion of Greta Thunberg. And there was stuff that you wanted to talk about instead. For example, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, this new aid delivery operation where we have seen a string of deadly distributions. I think some 200 Palestinians have now been killed on these sites, over 700 injured. The UN warned from the start that these would be dangerous. Why are they still going, given the string of deaths that have been attached to them? And what did you not get to say that you wanted to?
That's right, but this is the point. I mean, the point that I had made in other interviews is that what the Madeleine represented a threat too for Israel was not Israel's security, but Israel's impunity. Because this is symbolically, it was so powerful what the Madeleine was doing. And evidence of it is the fact that yesterday I was on 11 interviews in 13 hours with the night in the middle, which tells you the level of interest. All of a sudden, people are talking about that. Why? Now, hadn't Greta Thunberg and Rima Hassan and the others, but they were the most well-known before the flotilla, been there, God knows, because just a few weeks before, another flotilla had been hit by a drone in international waters and left there till it could reach a safe port, and no one really condemned it. While this flotilla got coverage, was followed. Yes, of course, they documented everything, because you need to do that when you deal with such a mission. And they were carrying all of us. So yes, I wanted to know what they were doing, because they were carrying baby formula to starving children, even if symbolically this is very powerful. The other thing is that it's absolutely scandalous that a country, that a state, which is investigated for genocide, and whose two leaders, including the current prime minister, which is clearly the man who's pulling the ropes of, who's taking who's calling the shots of this genocidal operation. He's investigated. I mean, he's wanted by the ICC for war crimes and crimes against humanity, and he's the one deciding for the aid distribution in Gaza, while it's been practicing for over 3 months now starvation. And the scenes that we are seeing are unseen before. So the people corralled in this sort of animal type of cage to get feed, sleeping on the ground and being shot at down, then trying to get food and finding nothing. This is such a cruel experiment. And again, I think this is so beyond the pale that people are light struck and they don't know what to do. So I try to keep cool and say, guys, this is so illegal that if you don't stop it, you are complicit.
You've called on nations to follow the Freedom Flotilla's examples and send navies to break the siege of Gaza. Today, a land convoy of 100 vehicles and thousands of volunteers from across North Africa crossed the Libyan border on its way from Tunisia to Gaza to break the siege and to deliver aid. Is this the kind of action that you were calling for?
No, I'm calling for member states to act. In fact, my first call, I don't want anyone. This should not be on civilians to take risks on their life. There is an obligation on member states to stop the genocide. And if they don't see the genocide, they have to take all measures necessary to prevent it, which include two things, because this is the ICJ that has said it. The first is to make sure that humanitarian aid is delivered. And this is why I called upon member states to send their navies. Their navies with humanitarian aid, food, medicine, everything that is needed, with their doctors and their nurses and tents, anything that can be used by the people in Gaza, and go with their own forces. This is time to break the siege, first and foremost. And while they are lacking behind, and I hope to see that from all Mediterranean ports, from Algeria, from Tunisia, from Egypt, from Libya, from Spain, from Italy, from France, everywhere. This is how you sort out such a mess. But meanwhile, because member states will not do that quickly, or not all of them, well, it's upon individuals to try to do what the Madeleine has done. And I keep on saying, people, this is very risky. This is very risky. So you need to be safe and protected. So coordinate yourself with the Flotilla Coalition, because there are guidelines, there are protocols, and there are do's and don'ts in this mission. So I'm not saying everyone leave and go. But of course, when I said that, I learned that in Tunisia, the people, there were 7,000 people who had already organized themselves, and the Libyan authority have given permission, and apparently the Egyptian government have given permission too. So it's quite amazing, and other things are being started in Europe. I want to tell to the people of Gaza or from Gaza, if they listen to us, I know that you feel about, and also to the Israelis who are fighting against apartheid, against genocide, and against occupation. We see you, and no one has abandoned you. We are just trying to bring down this wall of moral corruption from the other side.
I want to ask you now about a situation here in the UK. Middle East Eye has broken a story about former Foreign Secretary David Cameron threatening the International Criminal Court over its plans to prosecute Israeli leaders. In a private phone call with prosecutor Karim Khan, Cameron reportedly threatened to defund and withdraw upon learning that the court planned to prosecute Benjamin Netanyahu and his defense minister, Yoav Gallant. He said that the world is not ready for this. The Foreign Office has declined to comment. But the question I wanted to ask you as an expert in international law is to do with the Rome Statute, which underpins the ICC. There is an article that bans attempts to intimidate or pressure the court not to perform its duties. If these threats did indeed occur, could David Cameron be culpable under the Rome Statute?
Okay, look, I was listening to the interview before because honestly, I saw the headlines and I've not read it thoroughly. But let me tell you, because this is something that has come up also in a way when during the first Trump administration in 2020, the then president imposed the sanctions on the ICC official, which led to international condemnation and then first to a reversal of the policy under Biden, and then to a restatement of the policy. But let me tell you, in general, a threat against the ICC, direct or indirect, is an obstruction of justice. And it's it's an action aiming to prevent the court from carrying out investigation. So it's a violation of the principle of judicial independence. It's incredibly serious that someone in a position of power might have had the audacity to do that. The second thing is that it's a real violation of the Rome Statute, because as you rightly say, I think it's Article 70, 71, which are part of the administration the administration or system of the International Criminal Court, it recognizes offenses against the administration of justice. So any form of intimidation, retaliation, or interference with court officials is an offense itself. So it's a criminal offense under the Rome Statute, and the court can take action against person who misbehave or obstruct proceedings. Now, if this occurred and there is evidence, the question is why it was not reported by the ICC. I mean, to me, it would explain why there has been such a delay in the investigation against Israeli leaders. Because for me, given the entity, the scale, the protractedness of the crimes against humanity and war crimes, the war crimes like the settlements, and the crimes against humanity, forced displacement against the Palestinians, or other war crimes like the collective punishment of the blockade in Gaza. I mean, they could have investigated since 2014, in fact. However, now what are the consequences? There are consequences at two levels. Of course, in the UK, we are talking of someone who's no longer in politics. Because if you were still in politics, there would be condemnations from other states, probably diplomatic or retaliatory measures. Now, I don't know the UK system enough, but in normal systems, had he been still in office, there could have been an investigation, legal challenges by civil society. Surely something that will happen. I don't know if it's already started, but media and public backlash, reputational damage. And I don't know. One needs to see the UK legislation, but surely there could be something that is done along these general principles.
Now, finally, Francesca, there is some action being taken. Today, the UK, Canada, Australia and New Zealand said they will sanction Israeli ministers Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich. Will these sanctions make a difference?
That's a good start, and still it's a political measure. Sanctions are generally for states, so and individuals, fine, but it's the state of Israel that must be sanctioned. This is not... while Ben-Gvir and Smotrich must be investigated either by the ICC or by other tribunals, it's the state of Israel responsible for the crimes that have been committed against the Palestinians. The war crime of building settlements in occupied territory, the crime against humanity of forced displacement, the war crime of collective punishment, and Gaza, which is a collection of war crimes and crimes against humanity, including starvation. So let's not put the blame on Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and Netanyahu only, because the other members of the government didn't do anything to stop it, and you are responsible for the crime of genocide, for example, for action or omission. Well, what did the judiciary do? What did the parliament do? No, in fact, this is a collective endeavor. And so there are two things that the UK, these other states you mentioned, was it Australia, New Zealand, France,
Canada,
and
UK, Canada, and Australia, and New Zealand.
They need to make sure that investigations are open, or so do not obstruct the course of justice toward people like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. So the thing is that over the past, there have been numerous attempts from Palestinians and others to bring cases against Israeli leaders that have been politically stopped. This is to end. This is the era, in my view, if there is a change, this must be the era of justiciability of all human rights and international law provisions who have been violated. So if the states are serious, they will impose sanctions on the states, and they will stop trading with weapons, first and foremost, security surveillance and other means that allow Israel and others to profit from the legality of the occupation and the genocide.
Francesca Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur for the Occupied Palestinian Territories, thank you for your time.